Hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Geekdom 101, and today we are checking out the history of Cell explained in Dragon Ball. I think it's going to be interesting. It's half an hour long, so I feel like it's going to be quite an in-depth look, or, better understanding of Cell's, history within the world of Dragon Ball, because there was different timelines. Very interesting bad guy as well, considering, there was the whole android thing, and then he came from the future, and then hunted them down, and all that stuff, and then in the future he's be defeated by Trunks after the fact. So let's get into it.
He is perhaps the most brilliant and dangerous artificial creation of all time.
Hell yeah.
Having the power and abilities of some of the strongest fighters in the universe, he threatened the entire solar system with his seemingly unstoppable strength.
And it was most interesting as well with the transformations and the way he was a background villain at one point and then became the main villain.
He is the artificial human known as Cell, and on this edition of Dragon Ball in Depth, we cap off our retrospective on the chaos that rose from the Red Ribbon Army and discuss everything we know about Cell, from the science behind his incredible molecular structure to the actual story behind his creation.
Dr. Giraud!
This will be the best video that you will ever see on the life of Cell. Oh, and we will discuss Cell Max a little bit too.
Okay.
Welcome to Dragon Ball In Depth, episode 71, The Story of Cell.
Let's do it. Yeah, Dragon Ball In Depth.
Please be aware that this is the third video of a three-part Dragon Ball In-Depth trilogy, which began with the History of the Red Ribbon Army Explained video and was followed up by the Androids Explained video.
Okay, wow.
This is the third video, and thus I highly recommend watching those videos first so you can get a clear understanding of what led to Cell. So,
I'm happy to checking this one out.
Make sure you go do that and come back.
Oops.
For those of you who have already seen it, let's discuss Akira Toriyama's concept for the creation of Cell.
Funky. I like that.
Frieza was seemingly the ultimate Dragon Ball villain, so series creator Akira Toriyama had some huge shoes to fill.
He really did. He created such an iconic villain there.
When it comes to the villains of the next arc and whatever came after. This led to a fake rumor that existed for years that states that he was going to end the manga at the Frieza saga. No such statement has ever been made from Toriyama or anybody from Japan, which led to me debunking this a few years ago on the channel. Cool. But I can understand why people would assume that, because it did feel like a big culmination. Because of how high the bar was set, Toriyama struggled to really figure out what to do. As I said in my previous in-depth, Toriyama took heavy influence from the Terminator franchise for this arc, but he still didn't have a definitive final villain as he was writing it, which was never really a problem for him before.
No, because Toriyama's really good at making it up as he goes along, really, isn't it?
In the last video, I discussed Toriyama's comments about his editor's ideas on the proposed villains of the arc and what led to Cell. Here's the clip. Right around then was when the androids number 19
Oh, so I don't need to watch these videos then, okay.
and number 20 appeared. You weren't my editor or anything anymore, but you specifically called me to say, I thought that the enemies had finally come, but aren't these just a geezer and a fatso? Laughs. In truth, I hadn't planned anyone but 19 and 20 to appear, but there was no helping it, so I brought out 17 and 18. Then you called me up and said, what, this time it's just some brats?
Yeah, he was constantly told, but that's some talent. I feel like that is some talent to have to keep making it up as you go along because other people are not happy with it. Like, he's a talented guy.
So I brought out Cell. That's Toriyama from Daizenshu 2, 1995. So
imagine being told the bad guys aren't good enough and you still keep going and still make it fit in with the story. What a legend.
So Cell was created due to pressure from Toriyama's editor Torishima. And it just goes to show that sometimes ideas can come from
wow, he really does look like the ghost dude from that super episode of the Raleigh and that.
The strangest places. Torishima literally gave Toriyama his big break in the late 70s, so the respect level between them is off the charts. If we go to Dragon Ball Guidebook Daisen...
Wow! Whoa, that's lots of different designs. That's so cool.
Issue 4, we find there are numerous doodles from Toriyama of concept art of how he wanted Cell to look in his various forms.
Damn, they're so cool. I like that one. But it seems a bit not quite Dragon Ball-esque, doesn't it? But that's... Oh, and there's one with hair. Cool.
Toriyama has mentioned that drawing Cell was difficult and tedious because of all the spots on
Yeah, he put all the spots on, didn't he? I remember this was a thing, yeah.
his body. But nonetheless, it makes him look unique and different from any of his predecessors. Unlike the other androids, Cell starts out as a type of bug creature and has many characteristics of various insects and reptiles. As he grows closer to perfection by absorbing 17 and later 18, he becomes more and more humanoid in appearance and less grotesque. There's a deeper meaning behind this, but I'll get to it later on in this video.
Alright, cool.
First form Cell, commonly referred to as imperfect Cell, is a combination of a snake and a scorpion bug creature.
Snake and a scorpion. I can see that.
He has a very unique, almost sci-fi alien type of look to him when compared to other villains, and he first was teased during a conversation between Piccolo and Kami, where Kami reveals that he felt a very dark and sinister force on planet Earth.
Which was really cool. It's like, imagine the background, and then you got this, and it's like, right, okay, let's tease this now, and then have Piccolo go off, and this is like becomes a side story, which is eventually going to become the main story.
He wasn't sure what it was, but this was foreshadowing for Cell. After Piccolo and Kami merge and go confront Cell, his sinister motives and dark backstory are revealed. In some ways, I feel revealing everything this fast kind of hurt the intrigue and mystery behind Cell, but Toriyama seemingly wanted to get it out of the way so
done.
that the audience can invest in Cell's journey to become perfect. Imperfect Cell, as we know him, resembles a combination of a wasp and scorpion. Semi-perfect Cell has a body that is part humanoid, part scorpion. This is Toriyama's personal favorite look for Cell. Meanwhile, the fandom feels the exact opposite.
Yeah, I do. So that would make sense as to why he then went with Cell Max. Because if that's his favorite design, then sure, why not go with it again?
About this design.
Cool.
Of course, Toriyama would
there we go.
reuse a version of this design for Cell Max in 2022's Dragon Ball Super Hero.
Which was really cool. I liked it. Because it made sense as well that we'll see how he goes with this. Because I thought it made sense that he had that form because he was released before he was full power, wasn't he?
Again, we'll talk about that a bit later.
Cool.
Both of these forms, first and second form Cell, have the long head, which is supposedly a Namekian trait inspired by Piccolo cells. Finally, perfect Cell is like a big cockroach mixed with like Magneto or something.
I suppose it's the way the wings open up, innit?
If you want to learn more and get
think
more
we've
details
checked
on
that out
Cell's
years
various
ago.
transformations, check out the transformation guide on Cell here on Geekdom 101, as it gives you a ton of information and should be viewed as a companion piece to this video.
I'm pretty sure we have.
If you really pay
I've been doing this for so long now, and I've reacted to so many videos. I tend to forget. I'm sorry.
attention, the Cell saga was structured in a way to where Toriyama built up both Gohan and Cell simultaneously, although very subtle. Every time
Yes, Gohan gets his Super Saiyan form pretty much the same time as Perfect Cell's created. Don't we?
Cell got a new power-up, Gohan would also get stronger, as Toriyama was building up the big climax between the two by displaying their simultaneous growth as fighters,
pretty cool.
while also trying to make it seem like Goku would be the hero to vanquish him. This is a very good subversion, and I love this aspect of the Cell arc.
Yeah, there wasn't too much focus, but it was happening.
Cell was imagined both in the real world by Toriyama and in universe by Dr. Garo as being the final solution to avenging the Red Ribbon Army's defeat, not only by
Defeating Son
killing
Goku.
Son Goku, but
I must
conquering,
kill Son
if
Goku.
not destroying, the entire planet. Let's go into Cell's backstory in universe and extract new details that you may not have known about and that nobody else has uncovered until now.
Come on, challenger.
I am loving the funky music in between. What is this? It must be from Dragon Ball to be used, but yeah.
In-universe, Cell's backstory was even more fascinating.
Yeah.
After Goku took down the Red Ribbon Army, Dr. Gero created numerous artificial humans with a mission to kill Goku once and for all. Cell became Dr. Gero's ultimate creation. You can find out more about Gero's backstory, including the fact that Gero is the right way to pronounce it, not Gero.
Oh, wow. I was about to say, don't you mean Giro? But I've just been schooled before I've said anything. Nice one.
In the
Go ahead,
Androids Explained video, which you should have already watched, and hopefully you did. Not only was Cell his ultimate creation, but it was also his final contingency plan and his true legacy. As I delved deeper into it in the last video, Gero created various different android types to experiment on which would be the most dangerous, but Cell was the master plan.
Hell yeah.
19 and 20 were ultimately too limiting. 16 was a bit too nice and had that calm nature.
He likes birds.
And 17 and 18 had way too much free will in their spirits because they were humans first, and humans who really didn't like him very much because he kidnapped them against their will and converted them.
And then made them stronger than himself. What an idiot. And then told them what the button was in his...
them into androids. However, the power of 17 and 18 was something that couldn't be ignored and something more useful than even they realized.
So then it's like, how do I utilize that?
Dr. Gero knew this. He knew that the likelihood of 17 and 18 betraying him was higher than with other models. So Cell was created as the final solution, who could not only avenge him by getting 17 and 18, but literally using them in their power to make him
stronger.
perfect,
Yeah.
thus allowing him to overcome any opponent, including Goku.
Son Goku.
Although the concept of Cell was Dr. Gero's, its creation was in fact a two-part project. Dr. Gero's supercomputer hidden beneath his laboratory was really what finished the job, unbeknownst to anybody, including 17 and 18. In the main timeline, Trunks and Kudadin discover the laboratory and destroy the baby Cell, but the one they would be facing as the lead villain of this arc would be from an alternate timeline in the future. In this timeline, Trunks discovered a way to defeat the androids, presumably a device Bulma invented, and was going to go back in time to help the Z Fighters defeat them, but Cell intercepted
He gets in the way and then takes his time machine.
Trunks, killed him, took the time machine, and went back to 1 year before Mecha Frieza and his father arrived on Earth.
Which is why he was then... Oh, no, wait.
Why was the time machine set up to go back an extra year? Nobody knows. But this is how Cell wound up in the present timeline.
Oh, right. I thought that maybe would... Okay. No. Okay, fine.
Toriyama did a great job of teasing Cell for a few chapters without tossing out the full reveal. Kami's words, the bizarre sensing of alternate ki coming from one source, the giant husk that houses the larva form, and so on and so forth.
The mystery and intrigue, like, wow.
Soon after, the arc shifts its focus on Cell's quest to become perfect, so unlike any arc prior to this one, we literally witness the villain get stronger and stronger as opposed to them already being strong like Frieza or wishing to be young like Piccolo Daimao.
That's what makes it so interesting. It's so cool. It's very... and like Team 4-Star have mentioned in their commentaries of their abridgments and that, it's very horror-esque as well, which, yeah.
Cell is a very different kind of artificial human. Cell's brain tissue, likely composed of both biological and technical parts, is highly advanced. One of the reasons as to why Cell's microprocessor was so advanced was literally from what he was composed of, the cells of Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza, King Cold, etc. During many of the previous battles in the series, such as Goku vs. Piccolo and Goku vs. Vegeta, and even future Trunks vs. Frieza, there was a tiny microscopic spy robot that Dr. Gero manufactured for two purposes: to gather data for reconnaissance purposes and secretly grabbing a sample of hair or flesh from the fighters to contribute to the creation of Cell. When Trunks fought Frieza, the spy robot's AI chose not to take a sample from Trunks because they already had plenty of Saiyan DNA from Goku and Vegeta, that the AI surmised that they didn't need any more data, which was a bad move because had they taken samples from Trunks, they would have data on Super Saiyans, and then 19 and 20 wouldn't have been so shocked when Goku transformed in front of them.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Once the data was implemented into the code of Cell, the AI began to activate and learn more and more about its purpose. Garo programmed Cell with two primary objectives: to become perfect and to kill Son Goku. Becoming perfect was a priority,
That is
and he
it.
could
It's the
only
goal.
do it by absorbing 17 and 18 into his body. He was obsessed with doing this. While the computer was injecting data into the cell larva, Garo secretly installed a mechanism in the bodies of Lapis and Lazuli, aka
17 and 18, that's the names, yes.
17 and 18, to become cellularly compatible with Cell to allow the mutation to properly take place. Prior to absorbing them, Cell can power up by absorbing other living beings, namely humans.
And that's the horror aspect of it.
His tail is the most complex part of his body, made up of bioengineered flesh and metal with a sharp edge that can sting you like a scorpion, but instead of giving you venom,
It takes it
literally
in.
sucks
Yeah.
out your life force, leaving the rest of you dead
I'll give you all this money, please save me.
in a heap of flesh, ironically in similar fashion to a snake shedding its skin. His tail can also open up to absorb people whole, which we witnessed during the absorption of 17 and 18. Cell's tail opens up like a mouth and begins to slowly swallow his victim. Cell swallows the prey head first so that the body comes into alignment with its body as it moves into his torso and is eventually synthesized
So weird, but okay.
using bioorganic internal mechanisms that convert victims into energy. This mirrors how snakes in the real world eat and digest their prey.
Right.
Think of it as a more advanced version of 19 and 20's energy absorption crystals, except multiplied by many inside of Cell's body. Cell digests instantly once the victim is consumed. In 17 and 18's case, they remained alive inside of Cell, but in a shrunken, suspended animation state.
I mean, that's proven by the fact that, like, 18's released when Cell's punched so hard in the stomach by Gohan.
Synthesized into Cell's core. Cell's core acts like a nucleus, the powerhouse of his body, which lets him tap into immense power. Each cell inside of Cell is a hybrid fusion of the cells of the aforementioned fighters and extra data. A single cell is called a zygote, and it splits off into creating thousands of cells at a rapid pace, which is why Piccolo's Namekian regeneration technique works so fluidly with Cell. Take, for example, when he spits out 18 and blows himself up. Go to Dragon Ball Z episode 188, which correlates to manga chapter 411 and 412.
Right.
At this point, only one cell survived, his nucleus. Then the cells multiply
We're learning science here, guys. Science.
into various proteins, creating organs and flesh.
It's interesting, though.
However, Cell's biomechanical CPU is so smart, in combination with the Saiyan ability to get stronger after heavy battle damage, Cell was able to grow back to his most recent and most powerful form because of the memory within his own DNA.
Right, okay.
This is called mitosis.
Wow, we got science explaining why Cell survived and came back the way he did. This is awesome.
Except unlike real life, this is a much stronger science fiction version.
Cool.
Obviously, with it being science fiction and fantasy, this is the best explanation
Yeah, you can exaggerate it a little bit, can't you?
possible. Yes, there is somewhat of a plot hole where Goku with the Warp Kamehameha blows off the top part of Cell's body, in which a few episodes
He explains it's all there, but yeah.
later, Cell says the nucleus is in his brain. It could be considered a plot hole, but I always assume that the nucleus moves around, and as long as it survives, he survives.
I mean, why not? Why not?
But that may just be headcanon, but at the same time, that's how cells work in the real world, so perhaps that is the best explanation. Unfortunately, or actually maybe fortunately, a being like Cell doesn't exist in the real world because Cell, much like how he was created in universe, is a hybrid of multiple creatures. Ultimately, Cell having the cells of the strongest fighters that we know of at the time would end up being his greatest strength, as well as what led to his demise.
Oh yeah. I love these tunes. The rise and fall of Cell.
Cell is composed of the cells of Goku, Vegeta, Frieza, King Cold, and Piccolo, and as a result of this compilation of DNA, he has inherited their combat knowledge.
Common misconception, is it, that like he has the DNA of like everybody, but that's not the case. It's just those guys, isn't it? Because that's why they're all circled on the front cover of one of the chapters, or the chapter in it. It's like he doesn't have everybody's. It's just those. I think. Am I right?
And thus, Cell can do all of their techniques from up until that point.
And it's okay because yes, Goku knows all the techniques that everyone else does. So like the solar flare and all that stuff. Goku can do all those, can't he? Piccolo as well. So yeah.
And we see him do it. We see him use the Kamehameha,
that was
Wakanko
class.
Sappo, the multi-form technique, and all the others, which makes him extra dangerous. Toriyama's entire concept behind Cell was to give our heroes an opponent that is dangerous strictly because he is an amalgam of many of the main characters, and thus it's almost like the Z fighters were fighting themselves. However, one thing that Dr. Gero may not have counted on, but probably knew, is that Cell would also inherit aspects of their personality, for better or for worse.
Very
and
much
trust
so.
me, it was these aspects that wound up simultaneously building up Cell while also being his downfall. Cell's love of martial arts and combat clearly comes from Son Goku,
Goku, yeah.
and perhaps Vegeta. He created the Cell games as a way to test his perfect body. Because his primary objective was to become perfect, his narcissism is multiplied tenfold, but his competitive nature comes from Goku. However, Cell is inherently evil, and that's because of two reasons. Number one, his programming from Dr. Gero, and number two, the fact that he has the dominant cells from Frieza, King Cold, and Vegeta.
Like, add that to the mix. Goddamn.
Remember, the Spyro
Domination is there.
Robot sampled DNA from Vegeta during the Saiyan arc when he was still self-absorbed evil. Because of this, Cell becomes arrogant and overconfident, making the same mistake Vegeta has made multiple times. On top of that, Cell having Frieza's ego makes it impossible for him to ever accept that Gohan was stronger, which is why he's so frustrated fighting him. The main DNA that Cell got from Piccolo was his regeneration, which I explained earlier in the video how it worked with Cell's body. Cell may have also learned how to give birth through Piccolo for the Cell Juniors, but we'll discuss that in greater detail in the next section all about the Cell Juniors.
Oh, okay.
What I've always found cool is that Cell is even allowed to become perfect because of Vegeta's arrogance. Remember, Cell played with Super Vegeta's ego and knew that Vegeta would...
He knew how to play him, yeah, because he's got his DNA within him. He understands how he ticks. Vegeta should have just killed Cell. Trunks should have just killed him.
Fall for it because he is partially Vegeta. He knew Vegeta wanted to test his new powers and thus allowed Cell to absorb 18. Cell would go on to defeat Vegeta and fight Trunks, whom he was able to embarrass by revealing to him that his grade 3 form was flawed and too slow. I went into this fight in explicit detail in a video I did called Trunks Was Not Stronger Than Cell, which you need to watch because there's a lot of misconceptions if you didn't know about this.
Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, he was second form. He was second form because if Vegeta was, Trunks was. But then when it comes to
already. Nevertheless, these same exact mistakes Cell himself would make when he battled Gohan. Cell wanted to antagonize Gohan into unleashing his true hidden power and rage. His Cell Juniors were torturing Gohan's friends and family, and finally, after crushing 16's head, Gohan snapped and Cell got what he wanted, same as Vegeta earlier in the arc. During this fight, Gohan was untouchable, And at one point in Dragon Ball Z episode 187, he would do the exact same thing that Trunks did, increasing his
Yeah, he
body
buffs
mass
himself
and
and gets
power
angry, yeah.
at the cost of speed, which Gohan was still able to easily pummel. Gohan's blows were so powerful that it
He scoffed out 18.
led
yeah.
to Cell puking up 18 and reverting back to his second form, which seemed like the end. But, surprise, surprise, Cell revealed that he was going to blow himself up and with him the entire planet Earth. This led to Goku teleporting Cell to Kaio's planet as he explodes. But Cell's tactical yet sinister brain knew his body would regenerate. But what he did not count on
Yeah, he
is
didn't expect on the Zenkai boost and all that other stuff, yeah.
that he would mutate back into his final form, except a more powerful version. This is commonly referred to as Super Perfect Cell.
Super Perfect
And
Cell.
then, much like Goku's fighting genius, figured out how to use Goku's instantaneous movement right then and there after Goku used it on him.
Dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Cell was able to absorb the knowledge of Goku's teleportation just because Goku put his hands on his body. The big flaw in
Oh, is that
Cell's
why? Okay,
programming
okay.
is that even though being composed of the cells of these characters was useful, he got their bad traits too.
Yeah.
Cell is incredibly arrogant and
He is.
narcissistic,
Yeah.
and he gets much worse with each subsequent absorption and transformation. Perfect Cell might be the cockiest villain in the entire series, even more
Yeah.
so than Frieza.
Yeah.
As Cell transforms and evolves, he becomes more and more human-like and less like a weird bug alien. This is because 17 and 18 began as humans. So you have to remember that they also have their own cells that synthesized into Cell's body structure. Unfortunately for him, Cell's arrogance and overconfidence is what led to his demise. No matter what, by the time Gohan hit Super Saiyan 2 and realized how much raw and untamed power he had, even with one arm, he was able to put Cell away. Of course, it was Goku constantly egging on his son
like,
and
"Come on, Gohan,
asking
you
him
can
to
do
unleash
it.
his true
Do it.
power
Do it
that
now."
led to Cell being ultimately destroyed and every cell in his body was wiped. At this point, the torch was passed. Gohan would become the main character of Dragon Ball and, for a little while, carry that torch after saving the world from
Yeah, not for long, but he did.
Cell. Would that really be the end of Cell, though? The answer is yes and no. In the manga, he was not seen again. In the anime, though, he was. So
Oh, yeah.
in the next section, let's discuss not only what would happen with Cell in the anime-only events, but also let's talk about the Cell Juniors, Cell X, Cell Max,
Oh, we're going to X. Okay.
and all kinds of extra facts. Hey, that rhymes. For all of you
I mean, alright, fine. Let's do it all.
to dig into. Let's go now to part 4.
Cell. I don't know the tune. I don't know how to...
In this final section, we discuss Cell's numerous returns and incarnations.
Cool.
After having a small guest appearance in the Otherworld Tournament anime-only story arc in Dragon Ball
Or Pecan just goes bam bam.
Z and getting totally humiliated by Pakuhan,
Yeah.
and also appearing in some filler scenes in Hell during the Buu arc, Cell would not really make a grand return until the Grand Tour, Dragon Ball
nice,
GT.
nice, well done.
In GT, Cell,
Goku
alongside
fights them
Frieza,
both
teamed
again,
up to
doesn't he?
battle Goku in Hell. During the battle, Goku easily defeats them, but they regenerate not because of a technique, but because they are immortal in Hell. This doesn't make much sense considering it was stated that if someone who is already dead is destroyed, they are
They are
wiped
just
out of
completely
existence,
gone. Whatever.
not
Yeah,
regenerated.
but it was GT, so, you know, it was crap anyway.
There was one moment where Cell grabs Goku by his tail and tries to absorb him, like he did for 17 and 18, and he actually felt a huge surge in power momentarily. It's strange that he tried to swallow Goku rather than suck him, but it's GT. Dragon Ball Fighters stated that Cell could not absorb anybody in his perfect form or above, but this contradicts that. So Goku manages to do what nobody else had ever done and
Get
work
out.
his way
Of course
out
he
of
does.
Cell's body.
Yeah.
Frieza and Cell introduce a new technique called the Hell's Buster, which creates an energy cage around Goku to trap him and throw him to the lower levels of Hell. Goku gets trapped in ice and is about to be finished off by Cell and Frieza, but he powers up to melt the ice. Then he knocks them down and
So
encases
stupid.
them in ice using the same snowblower machine. He knocks over their frozen bodies and they break, and that's the last of Cell in the anime.
So dumb.
What a weak ass way to go out.
Yeah.
Besides just Cell himself, there are other variations, with the most well known being the Cell Juniors.
Let's go.
Cell was able to birth them into fighting the Z Fighters
And they're just as strong as him.
in Dragon Ball Z episode 183,
Are they? Let's find out.
which correlates with Dragon Ball manga chapter 406. These juniors are far from just clones. They are created using a hybrid of Namekian birthing, which was inherited from Piccolo, who got it from his previous
Oh, it makes sense with the egg. Yeah.
form as Demon King Piccolo, and a combination of that and cellular mitosis.
Makes sense.
According to Cell, each Cell Jr. contained all of his abilities and techniques.
That's
In
crazy.
the English dub, Cell remarks that they are equal in power to him, which was not in the manga and really makes no sense. They were indeed still pretty strong and were able to torture the Z Fighters until Gohan stepped in after transforming and destroyed them all. But did he really? In the Dragon Ball Super manga, Cell Juniors were able to regenerate due to their nucleus existing, and at some point, Park Ranger 17 stepped in and somehow managed to tame and control the Cell Juniors and employ them in the park.
What? What? I've missed that. That's a thing. What? What?
17 forgot to tell Goten and Trunks this detail, which led to a battle between Goten and Trunks versus the Cell Juniors, which ended when they noticed Goten and Trunks were working with 17.
What? I have completely missed this. Oh my god.
I am not a fan of this at all because it doesn't make much sense. Why didn't the Cell Juniors regenerate a lot sooner and attack? How did 17 tame them if they, like Cell, are just evil narcissists? This really creates a lot of unnecessary questions, and I feel like it was done by Toyotaro for the sole purpose of fan service.
Definitely. Oh my god. What the hell? I didn't know this happened.
But
How did I miss?
creates a logic hole with it. I am not a fan of this, and I wish it never happened.
Wow.
Cell Juniors, though,
Okay.
aren't the only Cell spin-offs. I did a video on the channel in the Dragon Ball Heroes playlist about Cell X
Yeah,
a few
I've
years ago.
seen this as well.
Cell X is a boss from the Korean MMORPG known as Dragon Ball
So
Online,
weird.
created by Towa using the cells of the original Cell. He's a giant spider-like mutation of Cell that needs high levels of energy to survive. The video that I mentioned goes into the history of the character and his greatest foes, including the fusion of Vegeta and Trunks. Man, Dragon Ball Heroes and Online are insane.
Crazy.
Without Cell X, though, Cell Max may not exist. Cell
in
Max made his
conceptually.
debut in the 2022 movie Dragon Ball Super Hero
Great movie. Great movie.
as the hidden final boss. Toei chose to leave him out of the promotion because they wanted to keep him a secret
Which I thought was cool, but then there was so many leaks.
until you see the movie, where he is mentioned as Dr. Heto's secret project that Magenta was hyper-focused on. Dr. Heto is an even more brilliant scientist than his grandfather Dr. Garo, and thus was able to make blueprints of the original Cell and create this new model. By the time the events of the movie take place, Cell Max is physically complete, but his brain was not. Cell Max was designed to resemble second form Cell, and that's only because Toriyama's favorite form of Cell was semi-perfect Cell.
So, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, but is it because he was released before he was fully formed, or
However, instead of the traditional green colors, Cell Max is mostly
Still the dots. Still the dots.
red and gigantic. And as the final battle goes on, he gets bigger and bigger, larger than any previous incarnation of Cell, and equal to about Cell X in height. Maybe a bit bigger.
Okay.
When it comes to pure power, Cell Max is leagues and leagues above the original Cell.
Definitely.
Had Cell Max been completed, even Broly would be unable to defeat him, according to Toriyama.
Apparently so.
However, due to his early activation, he became an uncontrollable animal. Unlike the original Cell, Cell Max does not have the cells of other fighters and thus does not know any of the inventory of techniques that Cell knows, including regeneration.
True, okay.
This puts
Right.
Cell Max at a huge disadvantage. He was 100% created artificially with a power combat alloy that is almost indestructible. But Dr. Hedo anticipated that he may be released early by Magenta, which is exactly what happened, and thus he created a weak spot in Cell's forehead. But even with the weak spot being there, to actually pierce it with enough power to
You gotta be Gohan beast level.
destroy it takes a very extraordinary individual. Even Gamma 2's amazing sacrifice from space
wasn't enough,
was able
yeah.
to destroy Cell Max's arm, but not Cell Max. Cell Max is a simple rage monster, much like Broly,
Yeah.
who projects large amounts of energy in self-defense and to destroy. Cell Max was able to battle and defeat the combined power of numerous Z fighters, a gigantic kaiju-sized orange Piccolo, and both Gamma models. Let's not forget,
And they're as strong as Goku and Vegeta.
speaking of kaiju, that Shin Gojira was a huge inspiration
Oh,
behind
right.
Cell Max's photon technique that
Right.
he
Cool,
used in
cool,
the
cool.
movie. Ultimately, Cell Max was defeated by Gohan, unlocking his beast form and performing a Makanko Sapul while Gargantuan Orange Piccolo was holding him by
So
wrapping
cool.
his
I loved
stretchy
it.
arms around
So
him.
boss. Yeah.
Cell Max was not a fan favorite like the original Cell, and kind of a lazy idea.
It was lazy, but it was interesting. It was cool to see Gohan getting his new form, blah, 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 and it was quite symbolic of the original, like, Super Saiyan 2 form against Cell. It was cool to see, but yeah, it did seem out of nowhere.
But it made the fight in Dragon Ball Super Superhero different from Dragon Ball Super Broly's final battle of Gogeta versus Broly.
Yeah, like, you were seeing a villain being defeated, like Broly was left alive, and it's like, oh, okay.
He was just a rage monster created for quasi-nostalgia, including the moment where Gohan transforms into Beast,
There you
a
go.
throwback to his transformation in the Cell games.
Yeah.
In many ways, the entire movie is a tribute to the Cell arc
Yeah,
as
it
a
is.
whole, but obviously the original true Cell was a far more interesting character, as we've uncovered. Cell is one of the coolest ideas Toriyama
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
ever came up
definitely.
with as a villain, and now you have the whole story. Thanks for watching.
That was a really good video. That was boss. Yeah, that was really cool. That was a really good look into Cell and the other forms and the explanations and the story and why. That was boss. That was really, really cool. I really, really enjoyed that. That was really cool to see. Cell's awesome, and yeah, and he's inspired so much. You got Devil Artemis doing his Cell thing. Team 4-Star doing Hiffle, which focuses on Cell as the main character. It's inspired. He inspired a lot. But anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video upload, links and description to the Patreon page. $1 a month for support. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you want to. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch or discuss in future videos. See you guys next time. Bye.